Let's get back into our experts. Arnold Maliba, who is our guest in the studio, and the party leader for the Progress Plus Alliance, will be speaking to us shortly. Let's go to Louis. Louis, let's try it. Third time lucky. Louis Ngunyi, Nanyuki billionaire, speak to us on the issues of youth and leadership. We had a conversation with you here yesterday, and we were asking, so is it possible for us to get there? Just reflecting on what has been said this morning, what are your thoughts?
Right, I'm hoping you can hear me now.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Oh, thank God. Good morning, I hope you're doing well. I was happy to be there yesterday, and I'm safely back in Nanyuki. Now, to the question of can Gen Z build political power, I would say the Gen Z already has political power. The headache that a lot of people and probably older generations that are struggling with is whether that power can be harnessed or wielded by any particular individual. Because I think political power often looks like an individual being able to sit at the table and pushing an entire generation or a population towards a specific direction. And we have a country or a generation, or maybe, let's say the Gen Z, the young people in our country, where the most important unit of governance is at the individual level. And this is the point at which the consciousness shift Louis, happens.
Could you speak up a bit? It's a bit hard to get you. Maybe get closer to the mouthpiece.
Is it easier now?
No, it's still a bit low.
Still a bit low, but maybe Jack, so we can pump up his volume a little bit, just so we can hear him audibly. But do continue.
Yeah. At what point did you lose me?
Yes. No. I think we got you. It was just very low. So you can just pick up.
Okay. I think I was saying the Gen Z does have political power, and the headache is whether this power can be harnessed or wielded by a specific individual.
Yeah.
Because the nature of our politics is that political power looks like one kingpin and an entire group of people behind them. So this generation is a generation where the consciousness shift is happening at the point of the individual. So the individual, the single human being, becomes the single most important level of governance. And so now the issue here is, and this is why a lot of people struggle with this, is they want to understand, how can I still have the values I have and somehow manage to bring this group, this voting bloc to my side? And I will say it's going to be impossible, because if you don't share the values of these young people, because these young people, this is not a political movement that is guided by maybe kingpins, that is guided by a euphoria. This is a political movement that is birthed out of a deep pain that a lot of people face every single day. Young Kenyans are going without food. I look at my DMs on Twitter every day, and these people ask for small sums of money, 100 shillings, 50 shillings, and it's so painful to look at. So when you're having a discussion or a conversation on political power, most other generations haven't had the scale of problems with an educated population as this younger generation has. This is probably why the guest in studio might struggle to understand. And when you stratify people with Gen Z and millennials, you find that younger millennials share a lot more with the Gen Z than they share with the older millennials. And this stratification of maybe generations is a bit of a problem. We need to look at a generation that, let's see, started with free primary education. This is the mass that we're discussing when you're talking about Gen Z. These are people who have gone to school. These are people who've been educated. They understand what's right and what's wrong. And they did the right thing only to get to the finish line and realize that, the goalposts have been shifted. So this is not a political movement of our region is not getting roads, our region is not getting this. This is a movement where we're saying we are sacrificing an entire generation because of terrible policies. And that's why I would agree with the point where he said there's nothing new that the Gen Z are doing. The older millennials, what has been called the aspiring elders, they don't have a June 25 movement in their repertoire, let me say. What they have is, they've shown up at this point to try and advise people on a way that they don't understand. We don't want to come together, to put together a president. Our pain is about jobs. Our pain is about putting food on the table. So any leader that does not speak
The aspiring elders have a 2007.
Yeah.
2007 first election.
2008.
Yeah.
Specifically,
Specifically,
say
December
2000
30th at 11.
They have that.
Oh, wow.
So it's as painful and traumatic as everything else.
Yeah.
Or do you mean in terms of
Okay.
a shift?
I
Because
stand
I
by.
think
In terms of a
for
shift.
for June 25th, 2024, yes, that was a shift in thinking. For December 2007, that was just, it was trauma, but it wasn't trauma that led to anything positive,
It
for
did.
lack of a better
We have a
word.
constitution out of that.
Okay, that's
Actually, out of it, you have got the National Youth Policy for the first
But
time.
the movement was coalesced around leadership for Raila Odinga and Mwai Kibaki.
Moi
yeah.
Kibaki.
Agenda 4
And a focus on the
25th.
violence, yeah.
If you
Was
look at-
around young people. The focus was entirely about our issues. So, and like I said yesterday, we need to have a pursuit of truth. Our society is not going to survive without an endless pursuit of truth. We must be truthful with each other. We must be very, very honest.
Yeah.
And even when we start getting tired and we start losing belief, it's very important that instead of, and this is the issue, like yesterday, I'm glad Kasmuel is here, and even Morara. When you are a leader that operates on transparency, and then some of your movement starts getting shrouded in mystery, then you start losing people because, like I said, the consciousness shift has happened at the level of the individual. So even if we are following you, then you stop espousing those values, then you start to lose the mass.
Okay.
So that's my 2 cents on this.
Thanks, Louis.
Thanks, Louis. Let's actually cross over straight into Kasmuel, who can respond and react to this. Kasmuel McOure is online, and he's been following the conversation on this XSpace from the very beginning. Kasmuel, check the mic. Let's hear from you and your feedback. Can the Gen Z build political power? What does it take? What pain, what blood, how much blood do you need to shed?
Hey, good morning, Latif. Happy to hear from you. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Right. So I think the question answers itself in the sense that Gen Z already have political power. And there's a time when I used to believe this Gen Zote nonsense, but personally, for me, this is a Gen Z struggle. It's squarely a Gen Z struggle. The people who I know who died of police brutality was squarely in the Gen Z age group. And the reason why I feel like part of the infiltration that happened started with us trying to water down this thing and make it a one thing, because again, we were not allowed to build as ourselves. We were the people who were driving agenda, and I'm going to say this, for example, there are older people who kept on waking up and telling me, this is how we're going to do this is how we should lead the struggle, and this is how you should do this and that. But this is the burden of our generation, and I think we achieved it. We coalesced around an issue called a finance bill, and it was thrown out. But because we were not joined ideologically, and ideology is not something that you force upon somebody, you find, even right now, part of, if I were to think about this contextually, fixing the nation, as good as it is of a program, is still the child of a capitalistic endeavor. The reason why the show is built, while to us, the audience, it allows us to have this conversation, it's because the said company that owns it is driven by profits and not necessarily by greater good. And that's the thing about institutions or systems like capitalism. They've adapted so well that they can handle criticism. So whenever we sit and we start calling people, projects, and saying you belong to this and that side, it's the same thing that can be leveraged. And I heard my friend, Louis, talk about the young people approaching, for example, a leader like Maraga. But the same can be said, every young person who goes to any other politician can say that it's the young people that approached the politicians. And we have enough, I think, to drive the conversation. It's just that the reason why we're struggling, and even why this question seems a bit flawed, is the Gen Z, while we might seem disjointed, there's a seeming agreement that we were not in pursuit of political power. And so if you keep on imposing the question and asking them, do we have enough to form political power? People are saying, for example, people are asking me, so what about 2027? And I'm like, who says that the youth are waiting for 2027 if these things can be changed? And therefore, it's designed specifically to have us in this loop and keep on saying and asking ourselves these questions, because we know how the politics is organized in our country. It's organized around a tribal mosaic, it's organized around political parties, and there's a difficulty in young people accessing these things. And just in terms of people saying, if we're espousing certain values, we've gotten to the point where we disagree for the sake of disagreeing, and we pursue our highest individual good. So while for some people they might say that this one is worse or this other one is worse, for every person who claims who's been at the front line of organizing or of leadership, you will find that I could find a photo of everybody who's popular in this movement with a corrupt person. It's just in the nature of politics that you're going to stumble upon politicians. But we just have to be confident enough to believe that we can change the things where we are. Because personally, where I am at the Orange Democratic Movement, a lot is changing, and I'm at a table where we are discussing things at national levels, and I can call my party leader and tell him that when I'm giving him updates and telling him what the people are thinking, something which I previously could not do. And now, even if I decide to do street action, I have a person who's willing to account for me. The thing which I would urge fellow youth is to just do it with your chest, in the sense that instead of castigating somebody, because we're hell-bent on saying that this person bad, this person good, why can't we say what we are about instead of negating and saying, I am not this? How about we start saying this is what we're about? Because if young people are in the center of their parties, if I'm in the Orange Democratic Movement, you have Arnold Maliba and the PPA, you have Morara and Inject, and you have Lewis with, I'm not sure if they have a party, but I see him in Maraga's team. If young people are at the center of excellence, we bring it to the people to battle out the ideas. But this whole situation where I want to demonize another person so that I can gain, I could say that, for example, for me, it does not work, because where I am, I'm comfortable. So there's people saying, oh, I might want to I'm only firmly in one movement, which is the Orange Democratic Movement, and we are actively organizing and mobilizing to take political power. If young people could do that in their spheres of influence, even here in the digital space, it's not about can Gen Z wield political power. We are the ones who are going to be making the decisions in 27. Right. And sorry for rambling.
No ramble. Kasmuel, I do agree with quite a bit of what you've said. I'll say it here, capitalism is the root of all evil, over and over and over again. But specifically to what you've spoken to at the end, your membership of the Orange Democratic Movement, I know, is partly what you're speaking to as people, chastising. And that was in large part because your party leader has co-opted youth movements, has co-opted pushes for change over and over again to his own benefit. And this time has been no different, whether it's a handshake, whether you call it nusumkate, whatever you call it. So for you then to join his party is indicative of your politics as well, because we join a party ideally for ideologies, but in Kenya we join because of the party leader and who they are. So I'm finding it hard to kind of marry what you're saying and the party that you're in and what you're doing. And I do get that it's important to be a member of a party, but is ODM the only option? It's hard to marry Kasmuel's words and Kasmuel's actions.
Just as a response to that, I think that is a very flawed premise, and forgive me for sounding rather harsh. You've just said that we join political parties for their ideology. And
no,
I'm going to make just a moment. Yes, ideally.
But here it's more about party leaders. Yeah. Go on.
But we must trust that if, for example, you are going to join a political party, you will join it because of its ideology, yes?
I would.
And I will, yes. So I'm telling you that I trust that's it for you, and that's it for me. And the thing is, I will draw a rough, rather crude analogy. It's like saying because this Pope was bad, that I should not be a Catholic. And this is the thing where I did not join the Orange Democratic Movement solely because of Raila. Raila Odinga is one of the most consequential political figures we have. He is the most influential politician in the country. He has his own, I think he's a great man who has his own weaknesses, just like all people in the leadership space. So if we say these kinds of things, I'm like, I joined the Orange Democratic Movement for its ideology. If you say that I joined a party that has this man who you disagree with. So it's an attack on the man. You're not telling me that this is what you've changed on corruption and this is what you've changed on this other things. And two, the reason why I would say that I think it's an unfair premise is in a democratic country and in a movement where we had said that, for example, we are leaderless, and I've never once claimed to be a leader of this movement. If I cannot exercise my democratic rights by joining whatever party, because we've not managed to achieve, for example, what in the yesteryears they used to call opposition unity. Right now, at the time when I was joining the Orange Democratic Movement, nobody was bold enough to come up with a vehicle, a political vehicle, that seemed like it would shake the status quo. Right now, I'm at a point where, for example, I can say part of the things that we've done quite well in 3 months of joining, in a period of elections, young people have taken over Homa Bay, young people have taken over elective positions in the coast, young people have taken over election positions in Kisumu, something which typically our party has been accused of favoring older candidates. Right now, I see the leaders of parties, like, I'm not talking like youth leaders, I'm talking like leaders of ward and constituency chapters, are young men and women. Even in the, like, if you think about the utopia which we seek, which, for example, in the far left is a communist, we can say that communism is bad because Stalin was a communist. We cannot say communism was bad because Mao killed these many people. It's part of the criticisms that we offer, but I think it's rather lazy for a show that because I know we can push this intellectually, it's a rather lazy stance to have.
Okay, I don't want to get into the ODM and Kasmuel, but I do think that it is okay to have your right to join whatever party. It is your democratic right. No one can deny you. I do think it's also the prerogative of people who perhaps had faith in you or who felt inspired by you to withdraw that, given your new alignment. It's okay to shift when you're presented with new information and to shift your allegiances. I think that's also proper. But I know
can I speak to that?
Arnold, yes, also has some thoughts on it.
Initially, when I spoke about the Gen Z movement, in my opinion, having been designed in a way that, and by the way, the drivers of the movement were actually millennials and some people who are much older. That is a fact that we can't run away from. And when I hear Kasmuel speak about they weren't allowed to do it their way, so I definitely will ask by who allowed. Of course, he knows, if he's a true Luo, that they say that power is not given, power is taken. That cuts across. So once the word like allowed and stuff comes in, when I spoke again about millennial, or rather Gen Zs repeating the same mistakes we did as millennials, this is the essence of exceptionalism. He says that the struggle that they had last year was a Gen Z struggle. Not really, it was just a defining moment, but it wasn't their struggle, just like millennials have defined the struggle for electoral justice in this country. They have actually stood watch. They even died for it. Whether you're talking about 2007, 2008, you talk about 2013, 2017, it's millennials who've stood that particular watch. But then the challenge is here. Is there an overarching vision that brings us together? So where are we going? Besides talking about generational taking over, of course, life is a conveyor belt, and there will always be a new generation coming in. There is always a new person coming in. No one argues with age and wins. So far, no one has ever argued with age and win. It always catches up with you. So what is the overarching vision? As a country, we had the first liberation, of course, fought by the McOure and the founders of this particular republic. It was so simple at that particular point. They wanted self-rule, and it is independence. Immediately after we got independence, we realized that independence is not enough. We started the quest as a country for good governance. It took 50 years, by the way. A brutal 50-year slugging march until we came to 2010. There were so many battles along the way, but that was not the war. The war was good governance. So the second liberation is actually embodied in the Constitution 2010. So we have got a progressive constitution. We have got a very robust governance framework and everything else. But again, now we realize that besides being in an independent country and having a robust governance framework like the Constitution 2010, it's not enough. It must then reflect in the quality of the life we live. And that then is now the third, and in my opinion, final liberation. It is socioeconomic empowerment, and that is clearly in Article 43. Anything a politician is going to promise you, or whatever we speak about, is in Article 43. Food security, housing. Everything politicians are speaking about is in Article 43. But how do you achieve Article 43 without adhering to Article 10, national values and leadership? So that then that lofty dream that is painted in the preamble, we the people, and we go loftily using those words. Now that particular struggle will not be fought the same way the first liberation was fought and the second liberation was fought. Intergenerational working is important. Let me just tell you, today we have got 8.4 people who qualify to be called in this country as 8.4 million GenZs. Those guys alone cannot get you a presidency even if they were to vote as a group. One person I sat under leadership, or rather under mentorship, I sat under Mohisa Kitui. And he told me 1992 was only possible because the young people who had traveled and were educated, like himself and all the others, worked with the older folk like Jaramogi and Matiba, Rubia, and the others. It's only at that particular point that the changes that we speak about, the repeal of Section 2A, the reintroduction of multi-party democracy in 1992, was only possible after they merged their efforts and worked together. So when I hear my younger brother Kasmuel speaking about this struggle being theirs alone, that is the exceptionalism that my generation did.
Yeah, I want to step in. I know there's a lot of reactions from the space, but just listening to everyone, I think there's a couple of things that maybe where Gen Z could be coming from. There's an invalidation, I think, to the role that they played that I think needs to be recognized. So even when Lewis says that, you know, we talk about Gen Z and millennial, and then he says, but the Gen Z lived reality is very different. The reason why I think, speaking as a millennial, but the reason why I think sometimes Gen Z push back is because at some point there was an invalidation to who they are and what they bring to the table. People were being made fun of because they had smartphones. People were being teased because of going to certain places. And I'm like, they say we bring so much more to the table than that. So I think there's been an invalidation that I feel sometimes just rubs them the wrong way. And I think it's valid for them to feel rubbed the wrong way.
I think, yes, it's a valid one. But every generation has gone through it.
Yes.
Okay?
No, for sure.
And it's important. It's important that all generations acknowledge that this generation is talking about its lived experience. It's unfortunate that the ones that are subjecting them through that lived experience have also complained of a similar
lived experience
by an older generation.
When they were Gen Z.
Yeah, when they were Gen Z.
They were Gen Z.
When Kina Mohisa Kitui were Gen Z, they were facing the same. And that's why that generation then came up. All of them, Kina Kabandwa, and the others, were joining the push for multipartyism and saying, no, we cannot just be Kanu youth wingers, but we must also be recognized as people who have a say in how we run this country. And if the say is not going to be in this one house called Kanu, we should be allowed to go and build our own huts there and brand them, our huts, whatever we want to brand them. That generation took over power. And they started behaving as if they are the only ones, they are the ones who knew everything. And the generations that were younger than them were also being subjected to a different thing. So the younger generation now then of those who are in their 40s, Akina Junior, Akina Sifuna now and the others, have also gone through the same.
Which junior?
Millennials are going through the same. You know, and so on and so forth. And the Gen Z are going through this at this particular time. I agree totally with what Arnold is saying, that it's about the generations working together and acknowledging you have your lived experience. I had my lived experience. They are not the same. We had lived experiences, and we all are yearning for.
And we want the
change.
same thing. But Sikwa nimemaliza point. You know, I was about to pull her. I can't say his name. I was about to pull her. You people are not patient.
Let me finish.
Let me finish. No, so I think I was going through point by point, so I feel like that's where Lewis was coming from. But yes, to your point, it is about intergenerational. I just think that there has to be... I'm trying to, when Gen Z again talk about saying it's our movement, it's our time, I get that there's an intergenerational yes, so, and it's true, millennials played a massive role, and I don't think Gen Z have ever denied that. It was Gen Z led stroke millennial I think those two groupings brought something huge last year, for sure. I just think maybe there's a frustration with, number one, it's timing. The wounds are still so raw. So whenever it seems like somebody is quickly moving on to the next thing of forming a party, saying that I'm this and that, immediately we've talked about it a lot on this show, a trust deficit. So the trust deficit comes up when it says, yes, I know we were saying leaders us, and I know some people might think that we're really going round in circles and we don't have a mission, we don't have an ideal. But where we are right now is, I've said it again, collective action. I keep forgetting the last point, Dr. Obi. We're stuck.
Fatigue. Is it collective action?
Collective action, fatigue. We're stuck. So I think what I'm trying to say is I'm validating where the younger people who were quite active last year, the Lewises, maybe to some extent, Kasmuel might be feeling it, whatever it is. I don't think they're owning it to say this is ours. I think they're trying to say, please don't come and take something else from us when we, in many ways, carried what happened last year. Number one. Number two, I've always spoken here about the importance of intergenerational, but maybe it's the how, right? Passing the baton used to be the thing that's been said. People are like, don't pass it, let me just take it, because you guys just wanted to hold on to your baton. I think we need to demystify what intergenerational looks like in this time and age. Co-leadership is very important. When we have people like Nerima, Bina Maseno speaks a lot to co-leadership. As somebody in her 30s, leading with somebody like Dr. Obi. They were together not too long ago, who is probably in her 50s, 60s. Co-leadership, I think, rather than intergenerational, because there's some words that just land differently, but co-leadership is something that now we need to, both can be used, intergenerational and co-leadership, but I think we need to now speak to what does that look like, what does it mean, how does it apply, what does co-leadership mean, what does intergenerational mean?
Is it acceptable?
I don't know if it's acceptable, but I think it's important.
The question should start from there.
Is it Is it?
Yeah.
I think
can co-leadership
exist,
intergenerational, be acceptable?
Maybe there's terms to which it should be.
I have a feeling, Janet, it's not. You're saying a very good thing, but there are people who do not want anything to do with co-leadership. And that's why when they see somebody working with somebody of a different generation, they do not support it. They do not see the sense. They don't see the point.
I think it's the way it's platformed.
Before we run out of time, sorry, Lewis wanted to respond before we
continue our thread, whatever we're trying to do.
Because it's an important one, and you're absolutely right. The how is what we are figuring out right now. But let's give Lewis the mic on the XSpace. He had quite a few thoughts that he wanted to share. Lewis?
Yes, thank you. Sorry for interrupting the thread in studio, guys.
No, we'll pick it up.
First, I would like to also agree with Kasmuel that last year's struggle was a Gen Z struggle. Really, not necessarily Gen Z as in 97 downward, but younger millennials and the Gen Z as well. Because like I said, this is a pain. This is not, it's not wishful thinking. We're not saying, oh yeah, it's our time to be leaders. We're saying our lives are ruined. We're really, really struggling. So these young people, the moment you start, you know, and this is the disagreement I think a lot of Gen Z have, in as much as they're not interested in elective positions with older millennials, is that millennials are attempting to respond to a political question that they don't understand. So when you come and say, you know, last year all of us were on the streets, it's fine. But these young people, when you understand the reason that so many young people, without following any specific leader, showed up on the streets individually, and you say, no, this is not a Gen Z problem, it is primarily. Then I also want to respond to my friend Kasmuel. He mentioned that, you know, finding the subtext of evil, even in this show, saying fixing the nation is also a construct of the capitalist movement and so on and so forth. So if you can find, Kasmuel, and I know you're extremely intelligent, if you can find the subtext of evil, even in this show that hasn't directly affected anyone, how then can you struggle to see why people have a problem with your affiliation with Raila Odinga and his political party? Now, the other thing is, you know, I don't doubt that there are good things that are happening at ODM. There's no problem. I understand that. But at the same time, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with the saying, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. You can have good intentions. You could be prosecuting your intentions on the wrong path. So there's the idea that the intention must precede the action. And I don't think that's the case, especially if your movements are shrouded in mystery. And this is the main problem I had with your handshake with Morara. Kasmuel, you've also said you never claimed to be a leader. I don't find that really, really responsible, because I'm sure you understand the critical position of influence that you occupy. So, yeah, that's my comments.
Thank you, Lewis.
Thank you. Quite a good response.
Let's talk about that meeting, by the way, that you people had.
I
Because
think
you were there,
yes.
Arnold, with your party. Kasmuel was there, Murara was there. Who else was there? How many were you?
We were about 29 of us. We had a target of bringing 40 young leaders together.
Right.
It was just to do tea, talk to each other, and reduce our the differences we have, ideological, political, and even if it's programmatic, to just reduce, because if you're going to work on to a common goal, you must deliberately work, because sometimes you realize even what is considered ideological difference is just nuance, where you look at things differently. And I think that is the issue that Kasmuel spoke about, and somehow we are not really breaking through around that. I also think that it's important that we allow these kids, allow me to use the word kids, they are not kids, they are mature, they are adults, because most of these jamas are just our
These
third
young
born and I'm a
people.
first born.
Yeah, young people.
I'm a first born at home.
Yeah.
These guys are actually the ages of our third and fourth born at home. Can we allow them to also make mistakes like any other human being will do? Like I asked, what is this treason that Kasmuel then commits by choosing to probably work with ODM? As much as I believe that Raila is a politician of yesterday and ODM is functionally dead, it does not represent the future. That if we're going to talk about the third liberation, ODM's utility in that particular struggle is over and out. Whereas I believe that William Ruto is not an option, and by the way, neither is Rigathi Gachagua. He is not an option. The problem is that all of us agree on whom we cannot vote for, but we are not agreeing on whom to vote for. So as a country, we have got this problem where people know whom they are not voting for or whom they are voting out, but they don't know whom they are voting in. Therein lies the problem. Because today, all of us almost agree on what we cannot do. We know whom we will not vote for. Yeah. I know 100% that whereas there are miracles do happen, by the way. There's even a church called Maximum Miracle Center. But I know that it's impossible for William Ruto to win a second term, even if he believes in miracles. I also know that Rigathi Gachagua is not the option. What we are not talking about boldly is the option, and that is why we convened the meeting. We brought together those young people, and I asked Kasmuel, I asked Morara, I asked all the others. Nene is much older than us, and so many others, people who do not just have political ambitions. Some of them are just activists. I asked them, so what are we competing for? All of us have got a common desire. There is an overarching vision to which all of us want to walk to. That is the third liberation, socio-economic empowerment. So where then are we disagreeing? Because it's easy for us to actually point out the things that divide us. So that meeting was just a meeting of minds. It wasn't supposed to be big. We didn't even complete the meeting. We didn't even have mainstream media, by the way, as much as it cost a lot of the conversations we are having. For the last 1 week, it's really been part and parcel of the conversations. It was a basic, we had some basic online guys showing up and just taking the footage and sharing it out. So the whole idea about that particular meeting
was and to ask yourselves, why are we fighting?
As in,
did you have that conversation?
Yes,
because
we did.
What you're saying, by the way, Louis Ngunyi, when he was here yesterday, said, we know a lot of what we are not than what we are. And even this morning, he has repeated and said, it's important that, first of all, we sit back and we interrogate ourselves. That's what you were doing?
So in that meeting, we asked ourselves, we know what divides us. Are we looking at what can bring us together? We share a common future. We share a common dream. Some of these people are pursuing leadership. But is that Kenya that we want, all of us agree on it. But then are we going to arrive there as individuals? It's almost impossible, but and that is why the political class, the legacy politicians have actually perfected that. So I just wanted to say this, that I know the anger people have against Kasmuel, for example, is the hope they had in him. It's about the hope. And then, of course, it's packaged differently. But look at this. I do not believe that Matiang'i, for example, respects the team he was meeting in McOure, for example. But out of real politics, he chooses to go. That is the practicality of how we get there. We might not agree on everything else, but can we magnify the things that can actually bring us together? I do not think that Martha Karua agrees with Rigiji ideologically. In fact, Martha does not agree with anyone on anything. But she has chosen, and even in the past, worked with other people. But then for us as young people, somehow you realize that we pick lines of extremism. And I think it's the problem of the university, that the university was supposed to be a place, a nursery of reason. Incidentally, of course, the university now has become a nursery of isms. There's a lot of isms that are coming out. So a lot of just nuances that are showing up, and people want to use that to direct how we even, our worldview. So can we forgive, for example, look at McOure and tell him that we do a two-line formation. That Napoleon will tell you this. If you are a reader of strategy, Napoleon will argue that if you have got two enemies that you are fighting, you embed yourselves between them and fight them in turns until you win or one of them joins you. So today, like in our way of looking, we are from PPA, and we have got a loose formation called the National Alternative Alliance that actually convened that particular meeting, is that we do not believe that BBG represents the future. We also do not believe that the People's Loyal Opposition that is led by Rigathi Gachagua and his team represent the future. We deliberately want to come up with that alternative, call it a third, a fourth, or whatever, but that alternative that people can look at. So it's for us to ask ourselves questions. So what is bringing us together has been the challenge, because Morara as an individual might not be able to earn the respect of the team, or rather the respect of the country to become president. Alone, myself as Maliba, might not be able to pull that. Kasmuel is also on the other side. So instead, you know, Morara is not the problem here. Have you realized that the struggle, even online, the struggle is for us to, in our opinion, to stage a prison break. But you know, we are wasting a lot of time with bashing Morara. We are wasting a lot of time fighting Kasmuel. As if all the millennials are over, including Ngunyi and the others. As in, if you feel that Kasmuel is now, his utility is spent, why can't you come up with a new person, because you have got bigger people? We actually will go so far if we work together and listen. The reason why I've given Matiang'i and Martha Karua as an example has been because these people do not agree ideologically, politically, they have got differences. But for practicality of politics, they work together to achieve, for the bigger good. It's the same way, for example, if you look at Raila Odinga and William Ruto. Of course, this is the Pentagon one more time, at least an element of the Pentagon working, but they do not agree on a number of things. Like the president is very capitalistic. He can get money out of anything. But then Raila Odinga, as much as I might not agree with the way he's done work, but he's led and consolidated the country. But then Raila came to power, or rather he came to mainstream politics. He was elected, first elected at 47. There are a lot of people who are elected much younger than him and have not left as much impact on the political scene as a man who showed up in 1992 at 47. I think 47 or 45. So can we work on the things that actually are going to help us build something? All of us agree William Ruto is not the option. Rigathi is not. But then who then is the option?
Who's the option?
Yeah.
Louis will tell you it's former Chief Justice Maraga.
Or
somebody else will come with Okiya Mtata. Someone else will, I mean, there are many other people.
So long as
the more they are, the better.
No. We are not going anywhere.
Can I interrupt? Here's the thing. I think the time is not on our side as far as 2027 is concerned. That's a fact.
Yeah.
But this rush to do things is also not a good idea. What we're doing right now is we're figuring it out. So we're too absolute, we cancel too fast, or we're too, we lean into this and that too fast. I think that's us doing the work of figuring out what this looks like long term. And that's the foundation that we're building. So as much as we are running out of time, it's still important to do this groundwork and do it well. So when you see people calling out, seeing a red flag and saying, staki hapo, that's perfectly fine. That's us fixing. Then we'll get there. So let's not rush it. I know time is not on our side, but still, let's not rush it. Let's have Okiya and Maraga and Morara and everyone come in, and hopefully, this is my now prayer, that with the time that we have, we're able to get one name and we're able to coalesce behind that person, because that's very important. But let them all come. Let's figure out what we like about X, what we don't like about Y, and then narrow down to one.
Okay.
The problem with that thinking is the political dishonesty in that. That no one has ever voted for McOure. He has never run any public office. So hajaiba pesa, as in hana deni yenyu ya kisiasa ama, he's not done anything wrong. But we hold him to a very high standard. But the person we are voting for and supporting is Raila Odinga. The person that we are voting, I'm giving an example. Okay. The person that we are supporting, for example, is Maraga. If I were to go into Maraga's book, I would find a lot of things to complain. Kasmuel has done none of those. I think Morara's biggest problem was to actually try and tell people that you can finance your own politics. And he's, of course, unashamed about it. He's unapologetic about it because he feels that's the future. I still believe that the biggest problem Morara and Kasmuel have done was to emerge out of this particular movement when people still wanted to argue around on who is our leader. That is my opinion.
I fundamentally
because
disagree.
we hold these young people to a very high standard.
The issue was that the movement, quote unquote, felt betrayed by their actions, because it's like we have this clear goal and one thing we're not doing is going that way being the way of old.
Can I ask a question?
And then if you go the way of old, it's like
what
then
is
you're
the way of old here?
The way of in Kasmuel's case, it's aligning with Raila Odinga. In Morara's case, it's also seeming to want more of the spotlight than to do the actual work.
Okay, I do not know what Kasmuel plans to do in ODM, but I'm just thinking, the people that voted for Raila Odinga, were there GenZs therein?
Yeah.
Yes, they were actually the majority. Were there millennials therein? Yes. Were there older folk? Yes. Are the people in ODM Kenyans? Yes. Are they also part and parcel of these generations we're speaking about? Yes. What if Kasmuel goes to ODM, wrecks it from within? There's the tactical bit of it, or rather, the succession bit of it.
Let's not even call it wrecks it. Let's just say drives it in a new direction.
He can also bring in new energy. But there was somebody else who spoke about that the mature people. There was a reverend who was speaking about mature people. I almost forgot that. Maturity is not a function of age. There are a lot of old idiots out there. So you can't say that these mature people, that just imagine a president who is a Gen Z. There are a lot of things. Like, for example, there was a time when we said that people who are learned were the panacea for our problem. Yet, I will tell you that there was a point in this country when the typical public thief was an alumni of Alliance High School, and from the University of Nairobi. Typically, the people who've been stealing from this country are not just idiotic people. So, and that then again gave rise to the sonkonization of our politics. So then where again people
realize, no, not there.
We are not going that direction. These other people care much more. So can we have a balance of how we look at these issues? Because by the way, before we blame Gen Zs, can we also ask the generation or look at the generation that brought them up? There is no miracle where my sister electing, for example, now all of a sudden, because she's a Gen Z, she's so different from me, yet she's right behind me. There's no miracle. As in, what is that demarcating thing?
I feel like there might have been some grace in waiting to make such a final decision as joining ODM.
For him?
Yeah, I think so.
For him, I think, and that's why I'm saying the management of the movement.
Other Gen Zs and millennials who are members and active members of ODM.
I'm talking about the timing and the optics of everything that happened following June 24th.
There are many ODM people who are on the streets.
Yes, that's okay. I want you to look at something. This guy who was emerging as, a voice within the Reject Finance Bill. I don't know, maybe if we could go back and rewrite what happened after, there could have been grace in saying, I need to consider my options here, as, let's say, as Kasmuel, for example. And I don't know, maybe he's thought about this and he hasn't said it. We do need to form a political party. No, guys, you can't talk about political party. No, we need to talk about a political party. We need to think about either being part of one or forming our own political party and letting that have its own grace. I think everything happened, the quote I said, it happened too soon. Okay. And then there was a stumble. I think so.
Kasmuel is requesting the mic. To respond.
Yeah.
And I also see there's
Janet, that for me, I think the formation and how the Gen Z movement and that struggle at that particular point was structured is the problem. Because it could not allow Kasmuel and the others to come to fore and functionally run that particular bit of it. I am thinking that is why there was a lot of jettisoning of talent. The bleeding of talent to other places where we feel like they went to wrong places was about the structuring of the movement. And that is why I would still go back to the leaderlessness. Right. That aspect of leaderlessness is what has caused what we see today.
What happens when you see a red flag in someone who is emerging? Do you nip something in the bud now, or do you wait for it to grow and grow and grow and then look at yourself 10 years, 5 years down the line and say, should have seen it? But let's give Kasmuel the mic. Let's have him respond, because I think that's genuinely what happened. You see something that's leading to a place where you already have been or are, and you're like, okay, let me put a pause on it. Kasmuel, what's your response?
I think that, first of all, I really enjoyed this conversation, but at the risk of reducing it to Kasmuel-isms, I think I'll just move this along. We might want to sit and flesh this out in a different episode, but for this particular one, I need us to remember, because while we have collective trauma, I feel like we also have collective amnesia, that by the time I'm getting to join this party, I'd been looking for a political vehicle, and I'd said severally that we've gotten to a point where we need political solutions to political problems. And we said, no, let's not form a party. And everything, I considered this. I considered my move to joining ODM. I knew its ramifications. And at the time, there was a great misconception. However, be that as it may, I still would implore young people that if you feel you're looking for a vehicle, I'm personally still saying, come and join the Orange Democratic Movement. But if it's not working, let us immerse ourselves, because us bickering across each other and me saying Kasmuel bad, Maliba good, Narima good, Janet bad, Latif bad, is not leading us towards our collective goal. We need to ask ourselves if we truly want to move towards an election. These are the things that we're supposed to be doing to prepare ourselves for an election, because we run the risk of being sidelined from the conversation. And this is part of what I was hoping to do. That even in this past week, when we were dominating the headlines, is we've done most of the political lifting in the past year. That's a thing which every young person on this space owes to themselves. The headlines should be filled with young people, but we've still reduced these conversations to a Maraga option, a Ruto option, a Gachagua option. But we're the ones who are doing the heavy lifting. And so we need to bring this conversation back to the point where it centers young people. And maybe if we center young people more, because they're the ones who are driving the political change, and I can assure you, we are going to give you more headlines, more potent than the ones that the older people are doing. But if more young people can do that, maybe we can get to the place of collective effervescence where we can say that based on our circumstances, I think that you're not ripe enough, or you've done this, so therefore we might not want to trust you with this. However, this person has shown...
We've lost him. There's also Johnson who had requested for the mic, and he has the mic before we wind up.
Okay.
I think it's maybe an internet connectivity
Thank you,
problem.
Kasmuel.
Sorry, Kasmuel, the internet is dropping off, but maybe just put it in the comments, your parting shot, then we'll be able to read it out.
Yeah.
We're about 2 minutes or 3, but we can still...
Derry J, you had requested for the mic. You have the mic now. Let's hear from you. Johnson, unmute your mic. Oh, he's gone.
He's gone.
Okay.
Wow, we're about to wind up. I think it's okay that we're doing this, by the way. To Kasmuel's point, even though he's saying we shouldn't do too much of this, I'm like, no, it's okay. This is how we figure it out.
This is the work.
This is the work. The us trying to figure it out here and go back and forth and then figuring it out with you. I think this is part of it. It may seem frustrating to people saying, why have you guys reduced the conversation to? It's the phase we're in.
Because we've never had what I would call idealistic leadership. We're working from a place of, experiencing and then being like, I don't like that. Oh, no, I don't like that either. Oh, that could be something I'm interested in. That's where we're at, and that's okay. It's just now solidifying it and doing it on time. And getting out of the collective action dilemma, which we're still in, which is what the quote I was looking for. We have about a minute before we wrap up. Arnold.
I think as to the question that was asked, if GenZs can actually get political power, build political power. Of course, the answer is yes, and for 2 reasons. They have got a voice and they've got agency. Agency here being that they can make a choice and decision on what actually favors them and is good for them. So they've got a voice, and a very loud one. They've got agency. They can choose what works for them. But I need to say a statement that I could actually be found to be a little bit controversial. That tactically, at tactical level, there is no clean way of doing politics. Because you move from one side to the other one, probably you need to get experience. And unfortunately, for politics, experience has no substitute. And of course, experience is not longevity of years. It could be the socialization, the spaces where you have been, and the people you've related with to actually learn through that. Because there has not been deliberate mentorship, especially from the political giants that we have. So, from where I see this, it's important that we're having this conversation now, so that then, because I do not know why Okayo, for example, and Morara cannot work together. I feel now as a person, and we say where I come from, that if you want to know direction, you ask somebody who's coming from that end, not those that are going there. But now with a little bit of hindsight, I can actually tell you that I do not see, for example, why Peter, these guys, I'm forgetting his other name, Kavuli, for example, and Morara cannot work together. I don't find a reason. I do not find. But when I left UDA and started organizing on this particular, and this is a funny one, Boniface Mwangi and myself are very old friends. At some point, we were even neighbors. I reached out to Boniface and told him I needed the Magauzi Hall because I was doing some meeting. And he told me he went to media, of course, dug up some of the statements I had done when I was he was speaking for UDA, and he told me that, our space is a revolutionary space, so we cannot give you this space. He's deplatforming me. And this is a friend. I'm not talking about somebody like I've met out there. we know each other for over a decade. He's telling me that we cannot give you this space because we will not associate our space, which is a revolutionary, with your way of doing politics. But you see, in the long run, it's about how we try to work together. This exceptionalism, the idea that there is lativism that should not be bloated. Tactically, there is no clean way of doing politics. For example, I will talk about one person that I really love. His name is Willy Mutunga. When I was just a teenager, I read an article that Willy Mutunga had written about Okot Pibitek. Okot Pibitek having an argument with the people at University of Nairobi where they were teaching. I think there was a Simiu whom Okot Pibitek was calling he was headless because they were having ideological differences. So if you look at how they've actually played through time, is that it's a mixture of, at tactical level, there are the things that might not be quote-unquote moral. If you moralize the struggle, you will not have a struggle.
If you moralize the struggle, we need to end it there. We need to.
The lack of morality is the reason we're in here.
We're going to have to.
You will have to define morality.
We'll have to pull that.
Yeah, we'll have to pull that. The way we're doing a series on finance, I think we're going to have to introduce one on this.
I agree.
And we fight it out till we're crying and sweating.
Boniface says, I don't associate myself with political mercenaries.
Yeah, and
Sawa. Enjoy your weekend. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining our XSpace. To our speakers, thank you so much, Kasmuel. Thank you, Lewis. Thank you, John. Who else was here? I think Harrison as well.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you so much for
Nerima.
Yes, Nerima as well. Thank you to Arnold. To everyone who's commented. There's like 100 comments on X alone. There's about 100 more on YouTube, on TikTok. We really do appreciate the level of engagement. We're figuring this out. Like Arnold said, we know what, and Lewis said, and we have all said, we know what we don't want. Let's figure out what we do want and how we get there. Time is running out, but let's do the fixing now. Hashtag is Fixing the Nation NTV. We'll be back on Monday to continue these and more conversations, 6 to 10 a.m. In the meantime, have yourself a lovely weekend. From myself, Mariam Bishar, and
Eric Latif,
Janet Mbogwa. Have a good one. Your World is up next. Parody in pop culture, I think is what I've seen the poster say. So the two lovely ladies will be here shortly. But yeah, to Mariam's point, have a good one. To Onane Monday, God willing. Bye.